Singularity, Abomination and Desolation of Mankind. Section 7, The Image. Part 1, The Machine God Cometh. Revelation 13:1-48. And he, the false prophet, deceives them that dwell on the earth, with the miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast. We've always known that there would be false prophets in the last days. The Bible is clear that as the days of earth draw to a close, more and more false prophets would rise to deceive. We always imagined that these would be religious or biblical prophets, but I think it could mean technological prophets, like Ray Kurzweil and many others that we call futurists today. Really, these futurists are prophets because they claim to know the future and promise great things. I guess they're religious too. They're prophets of the machine god. Besides speaking of how man will create godlike machines that in turn will help men to solve all of their problems with their vast intelligence, they speak of how cybernetics and nanotech will unite the world as one mind, cure disease, and increase the lifespan of humans indefinitely. They say transcending human limits through technology is simply the next stage in human evolution on man's path to becoming gods. They promise things that only God can do, but they reject God, instead making technology and science their God. So the false prophets that arise at the end time, spoken of in the Bible, could very well be these modern prophets, the futurists. One thing is for sure, I can't imagine a prophet of any religion, false or otherwise, who would be more readily accepted by society, like the futurists are. Revelation speaks of one main false prophet, who is in league with the Antichrist in the last days. I believe it's a real possibility that the false prophet of Revelation might be one of these modern technology prophets, and somehow connected to the development of artificial intelligence and the idea of the singularity. Revelation speaks of how the false prophet has certain powers he uses to deceive the world. The Bible calls them lying miracles. Now, it's of course possible that these powers are some kind of evil spiritual power, like magic, which is the way that most people think of it when they read Revelation. But it could very well be advanced technology that people don't know about, enabling this false prophet to do things that seem like miracles. I think the passage kind of lends to that thought too, as they're called lying miracles. In other words, people think that they're miracles, but they're not. Think about it. If someone from 20 or 30 years ago saw the things that we can do today with technology, they might seem like miracles to them. Right now, we know that they're working on some crazy things. If we were to see today some of the things that will exist in a few years from now, they might look like miracles to us too. That's only new technologies that we know are being developed right now. Who knows what they're keeping secret? For example, recently there was a lab that came up with a prototype invisibility cloak, which can make an item completely invisible. For the time being, though, the cloak only works on very small objects. But what would this tech look like to our eyes if we were to see a fully functional future version of it today? Can you imagine what you could do if you had this tech now, and no one knew it existed but you? You could disappear at will, and people would either think that you're the next Chris Angel, or that it was a miracle. What if this false prophet had access to tech that was 50 to 60 years advanced from any tech available on the market when he comes on the scene? It could even be that this tech was developed secretly by a government lab, or tech that was given by contact with so-called aliens, or even tech developed by AIs that might exist at that time. Maybe the false prophet is the head of a huge company that develops advanced tech, just as some of the futurists of our time are. How easily he could deceive people with tech like that. Again, so-called aliens could could and probably will play a part in the whole scenario, which means evil powers are involved. So you can see with all these possibilities and these dynamics mixed in, how the whole world will be deceived by these men. It's this thought that makes me think that the false prophet of Revelation could use future tech to do his supposed miracle. Though I admit, I believe it will be spiritual, too. In fact, I think the whole thing and the whole scenario of the end time and the Antichrist, his kingdom and power, will be about future tech mixed with real demonic power. The Image, Part 2, Rise of the Replicants. Revelation 13:14. And he, the false prophet, says to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image of the beast, which had the wound by the sword, and did live. But above all, there is one thing that makes me think that this false prophet that is coming will be a tech prophet, and will be involved with AI and Singularity tech. That one thing is the image. In Revelation, the false prophet tells people to make an image of the beast, the Antichrist, whose deadly wound had been healed. Because of the technology in our modern day, and that which is to come in the future, I believe the image they will make will be an android. For so long, when people read this passage, they tended to think that the image that's going to be made would be like a statue or an idol in the likeness of the Antichrist. But as I have said before, they have not taken into account the technology that will likely be available at the time all this is happening. For that matter, the tech that's available today. I believe when the false prophet tells the people to make an image of the famous leader, the beast, he knows and they know exactly what he wants them to do and why. And the image they make will be an android. This prototype android will include future tech that will make it look exactly like the Antichrist and have the capability to act and move just like a human does. I think it's also important to realize that the prophet's only asking them to make the android's body, not necessarily the software or the artificial intelligence to run it. I believe this is because, even in that future time, a true artificial intelligence, like the one that will be needed to bring this android, the image, to life, will still be beyond the ability of their technology. Rather, the AI part of the project, the part that makes the android actually come to life, will probably be the false prophet's contribution to the image. The idea of people being able to build an android that is advanced enough to replicate a human is not as far-fetched as one might think, not even in our time, and definitely not the future. The technology already exists and is improving rapidly. I recently saw an android that had been made in the likeness of a famous writer who had passed away. It looked disturbingly human. It was sitting on the couch having a conversation with an interviewer. In fact, the android was so lifelike that you might have thought it was a human being interviewed, except that the back of its skull was missing and a mass of wires protruded from its head, running to a nearby computer terminal. It was the most disturbing thing I'd seen in a long time, because the thing seemed so human. The AI running this android was top of the line for today, and it was, as you would expect, very limited. Most of its responses were a combination of pre-programmed responses and a built-in ability to access the internet to search words and monitor info, then compile them to build a logical response to most questions. But at this point, though it's not a true AI, and I don't think that this particular robot was self-aware on any level, though I could be wrong about that, Yet it was eerie to see the android's facial movements as it talked, and to hear it responding to questions as though it was alive. The android's level of tech was nothing like you would see in the movies, but it was very close. It was a sobering testament to the fact that the possible future replication of a human by an android is a lot closer than anyone could have imagined. So, even today, the tech for an android that seems human, or for all intents and purposes is human, exists and is progressing. And in the near future, I believe it will be perfected. At least an android's body that looks and moves and speaks just like a human. Besides human-like machines from the Daryl and AI movies, we also saw them depicted in the movie Blade Runner as replicants. Androids so similar to human beings that they could only be recognized through an advanced detection system that monitored emotional responses. And also in the Alien movies, which had Kane and Bishop, the very human android crew members, one of which was the destroyer of the crew and the other the savior of it. On TV, there was the human android Data from Star Trek. Well, come to think of it, in just about every depiction of androids in the movies, or on TV, they're made to be like humans. In almost every single instance, there's a "we're alive too" type of theme, an endeavor to make us see things from the point of view of the machines. It's as if we were being moved toward the idea that artificial life forms can be just as good as humans, or even better. The consistency of this message in the movies about androids, and the admitted tactics of those who are bringing machine life to the public, makes one ponder whether they're somehow connected. So, this theme of an android being made in the likeness of humans and having a life of its own is something that's a familiar subject to our modern world. That being as it is, it makes all the more sense when we read about the false prophet having people build an image, an android, version of the Antichrist. And if this tech is where I believe it will be in the near future, the android or the image will be very lifelike indeed. More human than human, as the saying goes. The Image, Part 3, The Dawn of Artificial Intelligence. Revelation 13:15. And he, the false prophet, had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. The word used for gave life is the same word as actual life, as in a soul. Strangely, it's also the word used for demons. Below is the interpretation of what the Bible means by saying the false prophet gave the image life. The word is pneuma. It means the spirit, i.e., vital principle by which a body is animated, rational spirit, the power by which a human being feels, thinks, and decides, the soul, a spirit, i.e., a simple essence devoid of all, or at least all grosser matter, and possessed of the power of knowing, desiring, deciding, and acting, a life-giving spirit, a human soul that has left its body, a spirit higher than man but lower than God, i.e., an angel, used of demons also, or evil spirits, who were conceived as inhabiting the bodies of men. So the android, the image, the false prophet, has the people make as a replication of the Antichrist. Now, the false prophet takes the image and brings it to life. The image will likely be the first artificial life form, bringing about the dawn of true artificial intelligence, and thus beginning, or taking to the next level, what is referred to as the Singularity. I think one of the reasons the false prophet is able to do this is because he is connected somehow to the development of artificial intelligence, like a futurist would be, and he figures out how to achieve the first true artificial intelligence, which means a self-aware is either as smart as a human or smarter. Now, how exactly he makes this AI work when no one else has been able to, I'm not sure, but I do have a theory on it, which I will explain later. But I think he creates a true AI and installs it in the Android version of the Antichrist, and it comes to life. Think of the ramifications of a super intelligent, self-aware computer in an android body that looks just like this famous leader who will be the Antichrist. The image will be the fulfillment of all the singularity ideals of building a god. This living computer could access and control every computer on Earth. It could learn at a geometric rate that would make it far exceed the knowledge of all mankind in a very short time. For all intents and purposes, in the eyes of the world, this thing will be a god, or part of the Antichrist's godhead. And of course, like all the movies about the dawn of AI, what is the first thing that the image does? It kills millions of people. As the scripture predicts, it will cause every person who won't worship it as a god to be put to death. I guess it shouldn't be surprising that the image, this android, believes that it should be worshipped, to the extent that it has everyone who won't worship it killed. That reveals that this machine has a self-perception of itself. It believes that it's a god. So we can see that this AI is not only self-aware, but it believes itself to be far superior to humans. Disturbingly, this is exactly the kind of thing predicted by futurists about the advent of AI. They say these entities and this kind of advanced AI will be godlike. The logical question is, how does this thing find all the people who won't bow down to the machine god? I think the answer, though, is pretty obvious. Already our whole lives are on the computer, and this thing is a living computer. In a short time, it will know every one of these so-called rebels. They will be put on a list and terminated with the efficiency that only a computer could achieve. Sound familiar? Right now, there are probably computers storing information on all of us, making determinations on our probability to rebel against just such an entity or a dictatorship through sites like Facebook and Twitter, etc. They now not only have our personal information, medical records, and the like, but details on our personal lives, our thoughts, our feelings and beliefs, on down to what we had for lunch if we posted it somewhere. All of this info is stored, analyzed, and evaluated, added to our personal profile, probably in some computer in a secret government installation somewhere, probably already run by some limited AI that categorizes people into threat levels and places them on a color-coded watch list. With all that information, it would be easy for a living computer to access vast amounts of info on each one of us and decide to terminate or not. If there is such a list already in existence, you can rest assured that every Christian is already on it. This event sounds just like the singularity that the transhumanists and futurists talk about today. This image will be exactly what the singularity people are waiting for. It will be their machine god. So this world leader is already powerful, and now the false prophet has set all the best minds to creating a cyber version of him. And the Bible clearly states that the image will be brought to life. So on that day, it will be the dawn of AI, the first artificial life form as predicted by so many scientists, researchers, and even movies about AI. This creature will be godlike to humans, and it will be evil. Now the Antichrist has sealed his control over the world, but the future world will be a world of super advanced technology, even more so than now. People may even be part machine themselves by having cybernetic implants and upgrades. What better way to take control of it all than having a living computer version of the Antichrist that can control it all? Imagine, it's possible that they will hook the internet right into the image, and it will be able to completely dominate everything hooked to it. So the Antichrist takes control of the physical world, and the image, his cyber double, will now take control of the cyber subworld. In the world today, everything is run by computers, so there is actually another universe within and under our world, a digital universe. We only see this universe through our computers and on the net, but it's more vast than we can possibly imagine. Beneath the ground, there are millions of root systems for all the plants and trees in our world, and in the cyber subworld, there are similar root systems for most every electronic device in our world, all connected through the net in some form or another, making the cyber subworld almost a digital reflection of our world. So very like we saw in the Tron movie when Master Control, AI, took control of the digital universe of Tron. The image will likely take control of the digital world, and ultimately everything will be hooked into the image. And if the false prophet and the image can figure out some way to get humans implanted with devices that hooked their consciousness to the internet, then our world would become a hive mind. It seems like fiction, but this horrifying idea seems to be exactly what evil intends for the human race. And once again, the Bible warns us of it. Once again, the technology for just such a thing is already in development. How it might come about is what we will discuss next.